All right, everyone, there's a few brand new Switch stories that dropped that we got to talk about today, starting with Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the definitive edition, finally getting a concrete release date for its Nintendo Switch physical release. Then we also have to cover a big talking point around potential franchises that have been forgotten about and laying dormant for years and years, potentially getting in the mix for new game releases as the years go by. Then the big talking point for today's video is steady progress that we are finally starting to see Nintendo deliver when it comes to Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we're covering a few different stories today, and we got to kick it off with a final release date for Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the definitive edition's physical release for the Nintendo Switch. As if you haven't been around on the channel for a while, we've covered this game numerous times. It was a really unfortunate state that the game launched in, as I was personally very hyped for it, and there was going to be, I believe, at a December 6th original release date for this thing on the Nintendo Switch when it came to the physical version, which is what I was getting, even though one asterisk here is that you don't get all three games on the cartridge. I believe you just get Grand Theft Auto 3, and you have to download Vice City and San Andreas, which kind of defeats the purpose of the whole physical collecting thing. But regardless, you still get one game included on the cartridge, so I was still leaning towards picking up that. Then, of course, we had all of the viral glitch videos that started to hit the internet, and it was very clear that this was a rush job from Rockstar to try to hit the holiday sales window to rush this game out, and it was clearly in a broken, unfinished state. Since then, Rockstar has gone on record and apologized to fans. They've continued to do patches and upgrades as time has gone on, fixing most of the game-breaking issues. I think there's still certain performance, issues out there on the Switch version specifically, but it definitely runs a lot better than it did at its initial release. And the reason it's in the news today is we finally have a concrete release date for when the Nintendo Switch will get this game physically, and of course Nintendo is helping publish this game in its physical release. So my theory is Nintendo saw the quality of this game and really decided that they had to hold it back until it was anywhere near fixed to talk about a physical release, because it has been available on the eShop this entire time, and people who picked up this game early unfortunately got all of the glitches and all of the game-breaking messes on their initial playthroughs, and first impressions are everything in my opinion. So I hope this is not a continuing trend for Rockstar and their future games, but we definitely saw it happen with this. Now, the release date that is confirmed is now February 11th for the physical release, and again, a big gripe is that you get one out of the three trilogy games on this actual cartridge, which I really wish they would have just spent more and got a full 32 gig cartridge, but it's definitely a cost saving measure, and at the end of the day, you're buying a cartridge that has one of the three games that's included on the artwork. So just once you download them, don't delete them off your Switch, in case if in the far distant future you're a physical collector and you still want to go back and replay San Andreas and Vice City, like it needs to stay on your Switch in case the servers ever get shut down in the future, which is really the downside to that whole conversation. But if you were someone who was waiting for this game to get physically released for the Nintendo Switch, we now have the date of February 11th to look forward to. So please share all your thoughts and opinions and how you feel with Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the definitive edition, and whether or not you have any plans to pick it up in the future in the comments down below. Now, the next story we're talking about today is actually a very exciting one for me, as you may have seen in the news. I'm sure if you follow gaming news at all, you have, because it's been in the headlines all week long. But of course, Microsoft came out this week and announced their intentions to purchase Activision Blizzard for a whopping almost $70 billion. It was like 68.7 billion is the total valuation that this deal is going to go through at, which is crazy in and of itself, because it's one of the biggest all time in any type of media acquisitions ever. I think it was AT&T and Time Warner is the only one that was technically surpassed this in terms of total dollar value. So let that sink in for a minute with how big of a company Activision Blizzard became over all these years. And there's definitely some problems with how that company is run, clearly, and I'm very hopeful that Phil Spencer and the team at Xbox will do a lot of things right to fix everything from the cultural levels of how the company is run all the way down to what franchises they're focusing on and what quality of games they're delivering to us end end users at the end of the day. And the reason it's in the news today is because there's been a lot of topic around some long dormant franchises that we haven't seen installments in years and years, potentially being brought back after this deal is fully signed off and closed and the two companies are merged. So to kick off this conversation, I want to quickly hop over to VGC and read through a nicely typed up article where it has the exact comments from Phil Spencer and some of the potential plans for some series that I think we can still see potentially come to the Nintendo Switch with Microsoft and Nintendo's great working relationship as they've started to form over these last few years. So let's quickly read through this article together. Xbox's Phil Spencer says he'll let Activision Studios work on a variety of franchises. We're hoping that we'll be able to work on franchises that I love from my childhood. Activision boss Phil Spencer has said he intends to talk with Activision Studios about working on a variety of franchises from its vault rather than just Call of Duty. Activision recently transitioned virtually all of its studios to work on Call of Duty as demands increased following the move into live services with Warzone, plus disruption caused by the pandemic on its annual release schedule. That means developers such as Toys for Bob, known for Crash Bandicoot 4, are now working on Call of Duty. Even Vicarious Visions, creator of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 and Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, was recently folded into Blizzard. Speaking in a new interview with the Washington Post following Microsoft's announcement of its Activision Blizzard acquisition, head of gaming Phil Spencer suggests that he intends to give Activision Studios more freedom to work on non-Call of Duty projects once the deal completes. I was looking at the IP list, let's go, Spencer said. King's Quest, Guitar Hero, I should know this, but I think they have Hexen. According to the publication, Spencer said the Xbox team will talk with developers about working on a variety of franchises from the Activision Blizzard vaults. We're hoping that we'll be able to work with them when the deal closes to make sure we have resources to work on franchises that I love from my childhood and that the teams really want to get, Spencer said. I'm looking forward to these conversations. I really think it's about adding resources and increasing capability. If the $70 bill concludes without any issues, it means Microsoft will become the owner of a number of potentially lucrative video game IPs. While the obvious examples include Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, there are other notable franchises in Activision Blizzard's vault, including Pitfall, Prototype, Singularity, Soldier of Fortune, Spyro the Dragon, True Crime, and more. So regardless of how you feel about this merger at the end of the day and whether or not you think Microsoft will do the right thing now that they're going to be this mega gaming corporation, that's all kind of a separate topic in and of itself. I do tend to believe that Microsoft doesn't see Nintendo as a direct competitor the same way they do Sony, and I could definitely see a world where Microsoft is choosing to release certain games like Guitar Hero and even Crash Bandicoot on both the Xbox and Nintendo platforms and then kind of leave Sony and the PS5 crew out of the mix. Like, I could definitely see them doing that as opposed to bringing everything only Xbox exclusive. I do think we're going to see a ton of that, and definitely some moves with future Call of Duty games being locked behind basically Game Pass and the PC and Xbox platforms. Like, that's a very real possibility. There's no guarantees that they'll continue to work with Nintendo as well as they did, but of course, and we'll be talking about this in a second, but Banjo-Kazooie just got added to Nintendo Switch Online, and it's actually funny because if you watch the launch trailer for this game, I didn't realize it when we first talked about it, but there's a whole final section of the screen where it shows Microsoft's logo at the end, or at least a little text line saying that of course they own Rareware. They didn't have to do that partnership. They are. There's also a lot of reason to believe that GoldenEye is in the works right now for NSO, or at least an Xbox re-release, but if I'm a betting man, they're going to do it on both platforms. So when I hear of titles like Guitar Hero that we haven't seen in years and years, I get extremely pumped because I would say, gosh, from the years of like 13 years old to like 17 or 18, that was basically my life. One of my main franchises that I put super next level hours into was Guitar Hero. I was one of those crazy nerd kids that could do expert through the fire and flames, and I 5-starred it once or twice. Like, it was literally a highlight of my life when that happened. I used to have people that would crowd behind me at Best Buy and watch me play with my buddy. We would play expert co-op. Like, when a Guitar Hero game dropped, I was at the midnight releases, and then I was soaking my hands in water overnight so my fingers could move by the next day because I still wanted to keep playing. Like, that's what kind of franchise that was for me. And of course, the market quickly became flooded with annual or sub-annual Guitar Hero releases, and then we had all these bands coming into the mix with their own releases, which Guitar Hero Metallica is still arguably one of the best games to this day. But, you know, besides that, like, that really did end up leading to the demise of that kind of genre, and then we saw them try to bring it back with Guitar Hero Live, and obviously Rock Band has been doing their own thing this whole time, which has been great. But when you talk about the Series X and S and PS5 platforms, there's no easy way to play these, and the Wii was in the conversation with all of those Guitar Hero releases, so I believe that this could make its way to the Switch as well. So that's the big franchise that popped off to me. Definitely Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Like, please, for the love of God, Activision, reform Vicarious Visions, because apparently they've been dissolved into Blizzard, and they need to come back together and create more Tony Hawks. If we get a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 combo next, and then maybe we get Underground 1 and 2 one day, like, all of that stuff would be a huge win in my book. But I want to hear from you guys on what franchises that we talked about on the list, or maybe some ones that we didn't talk about that you know Activision and Blizzard is responsible for, that you would hope to see come to either Xbox, Nintendo, or PS5, whatever platforms they choose to release it on in the future. So I want to hear from you guys on all your nostalgia for some long forgotten franchises, and which ones you hope we see come back in the comments down below. Now, the last story we're talking about today is really a glimmer of hope with what the Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack service can turn into in the future. As if you've been around on the channel for a while, you will know that my opinion up to this point in time has been very negative on the service, just when you look at the overall value that Nintendo is giving us for a $50 annual price point, and not having any option for a monthly subscription, and only giving us the service as part of that full 12-month bundle, as opposed to what they do with their base Nintendo Switch Online service, where you do have that option for the monthly subscription service. Well, I will tell you guys that while my opinion really has not changed at the end of the day in terms of the value being there, we are at least starting to see somewhat of a schedule around Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack emerge, and most recently with this new edition of Banjo-Kazooie that just went live yesterday, we got the announcement of the February game, which will be Majora's Mask. And while I personally am not a fan of just one N64 game per month, it is at least better than nothing, and it does appear that they will somewhat be committed to one calendar game, N64 calendar game per month, meaning you might not get it on the 10th of every month, but you might at least always, even if the dates fluctuate, at least be able to expect one N64 title for each month. I hope that grows over time personally, but they're definitely bringing out some heavy hitters. As you know, Banjo-Kazooie is a big fan favorite, Majora's Mask is another big fan favorite, and if we get an announcement for F-Zero X next, Mario Golf, whatever, like, we know there's some games in the pipeline that still haven't hit, but then there's also games that we don't know if they're in the works or not. GoldenEye being a real big game breaker, because if we get GoldenEye added into NSO, that alone adds in quite a bit of value. And I think my hope is that maybe Nintendo a year from now, we will be looking back on what the NSO expansion pack started out at and what it is in a year, and we will have a completely different opinion on the price point. That is my hope. They can definitely do it by adding in enough quality titles, continuing to bump up the Sega Genesis offerings as well, because we definitely need to get upwards of like 50 plus Sega Genesis games on there, hopefully some of which are not a part of that original Switch collection that you can already go out and buy on a cartridge. And we need to see more systems added in. I'm hopeful that at the next Direct, or it might be saved for a September Direct, because that's historically when Nintendo announces new systems for NSO, but we got to get Game Boy Advance on the platform, we got to get Game Boy and Game Boy Color as well, and then let's start to have the conversation of other third-party systems like Neo Geo, and maybe even Sega Dreamcast in a dream world, which I don't think that'll happen, but gosh, would that be amazing. You know, let's start to have that conversation of building out this service with multiple systems, a large library tied to each of those systems, and I think that the perspective would quickly shift back to a more fair price point at that $50 annual rate. And I hope somewhere along the way we see them add in a monthly tier option as well, and I think that they will. I think they're committed to this online service going forward. If you've been around on the channel also, you will know my stance on subscription services, as they're just starting to dominate the industry. When you look at movies, when you look at music, it's something that is slowly working its way into games as well. And when the service is truly worth it, I don't mind paying a subscription fee. I personally am a physical collector. I own most all of these N64 games, but they're in the shelf back there, and I don't feel like hooking up my N64 when it's hard to do when you only have HDMI ports nowadays, and the games definitely are not looking as good running originally on the N64 as these NSO versions are. And I will commend at least Banjo-Kazooie seems to run really good at this point in time, and there's some Ocarina of Time fixes we're going to cover in tomorrow's video as well, but we're going to do a dedicated one on that, because you guys will know I've been waiting a long time for that game to kind of get updated and fixed. And while it's not there yet, we'll save that conversation more for tomorrow, but it's definitely looking better. So my overall point in bringing up NSO expansion pack is that while it's not there for a lot of consumers in terms of the value right now, I think there is a clear road path that Nintendo, if they stick to it and if they do things right going forward, and all of these games start to run better and better as time goes on, and they add their big guns in fast and on a consistent schedule, I can see a world a year from now where this is a no-brainer purchase. So I want to hear from you guys on all your thoughts and opinions on Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack so far. If you've been enjoying Banjo-Kazooie, let me know that for sure. What are your hype levels for Majora's Mask? As I'm cautiously optimistic because I'm so pumped for that game, but I really hope they figure out the whole fog rendering thing in the emulation before that game does launch. So I want to hear from you guys and all your thoughts and opinions on a Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, the pricing around it, what Nintendo needs to do to make it worth it for you in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.